M-A-R-K, Rupp, R-U-P-P. I'm going to talk really fast because I've got a lot of scripture to get through. It seems to me that freedom of religion is central to this discussion, and this ordinance has some far-reaching implications for the freedom we have to practice and live out our faith. How can we even be considering adding sexual orientation and gender identity to this policy when we have a God who so clearly states that the sinfulness of such a lifestyle? Leviticus 18:22 says that you shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. And the first chapter of the book of Romans clearly says that homosexual relations are unnatural and even calls them shameless acts. I work with children, and I seriously question whether or not I could, in good conscience, allow someone to work for me if I happened to find out that they were living such an amoral lifestyle. Very clearly, this amendment would take away my freedom to practice my religion. And while we're on the topic, let's talk about the ordinance as a whole. I mean, in 1 Peter 3:7, God clearly says that women are the weaker sex. So why shouldn't I be able to replace a female employee with a man who is a stronger vessel, someone less susceptible to temptation? And why should we include familial status? Why should someone be forced to rent to a person who has been divorced when they will likely commit what Jesus very clearly in Matthew 5 calls adultery? And I don't want to think what would happen if a Muslim person tried to work for me. Obviously, this whole ordinance is an assault on our freedom to practice our religion. And now maybe if I were really advocating for this position, I could wrap it up by nonchalantly dropping words like pedophile and sex offender to stir up some fear. And then maybe round it out by pleading for our children. Won't someone please think of the children? Or maybe if we were really advocating for this position, I could talk about how much it's going to cost the city in litigation and turn it into a money issue. That'll stir up some fear too, right? And I know we're not allowed to applaud, but this would be maybe a good place for all the truly moral people in the audience to noticeably shuffle in their seats out of satisfaction. Or is it that we're all squirming in our seats because this is uncomfortable? Is it uncomfortable to be faced with the possibility of discrimination justified in the name of religion? Does it make us squirm to think that what it might mean for any religious belief to have equal weight on public life? And so maybe opponents to this amendment try to pull themselves away from the religious debate and talk about the unnaturalness of homosexuality and how it is a lifestyle choice that shouldn't be protected. Sure, and maybe after we figure all this out, we can invite all the men up here to talk about the pains of childbirth. I think that would be comparable. Let me tell you that I spent most of my life trying to choose to be straight and hating myself a lot along the way. It wasn't until much later in life that I finally accepted my sexuality and began to truly celebrate my identity as a gay child of God. Do I have stories of discrimination to share with you today? Honestly, not really, because I have been forced to be careful out of fear that I will someday be faced with discrimination. I do work with children. That wasn't a lie. And even though my feeling is that my boss knows and respects me as a gay man, I have to wonder what would happen if the wrong parent found out and tried to pressure my boss to remove me. I have to wonder what would happen if a couple weeks ago, if I had answered honestly when a young man I worked with came to me and asked nonchalantly who that guy was that he and his family saw me walking with in the park last weekend. Or I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't just sat quietly, unresponsive, when one of my employees told me that he thought same-sex relationships were gross. And I wrestle with speaking today for that very reason, but I am tired of living in fear because I've come to understand that's not truly living. And I plan to attend seminary next fall to pursue ministry on a full scholarship. So I have a deep respect for people of faith. But in the same way that your right to swing your fist ends at my nose, your freedom to practice your particular brand of religion needs to end at my job, my house, and my livelihood. I tell the kids I work with all the time that you don't have to like the other person, but you have to respect them. And respect begins at recognizing that those people are people too. My understanding is that this forum was partly to see if there was a need for a policy on discrimination against the gay community. We've heard some stories already, but I have to wonder how many is enough. If it's just one more, I guess maybe I will have to let you know after these videos truly go public. But I refuse to live in fear anymore. Grace and peace to all of you.